Hello, everybody. Welcome to the official podcast of the number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system on the web. This is the SoxProspects.com podcast, episode number 134. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com, coming to you from Sox Prospects Mid-Atlantic here in our nation's capital. And joining me, as always, is the Sox Prospects Director of Scouting, Ian Cundall. Ian, things are actually happening.
Yeah, not a lot, but it's
more than last time when we had to make up news.
It's spring training baseball, so
yeah,
that's good. I was able to watch a little bit of the game earlier today, so that was nice to see baseball on my TV again.
Nice, yeah. It's February 25th, Sunday evening, as we record this. By the time you guys hear this, J.D. Martinez will officially be a Red Sox. Apparently there's concern about his foot, Ian.
That's what I think Nick Cafardo tweeted that, but
yeah.
We'll see.
Getting a little ahead of ourselves, but the Red Sox also signed Eduardo Nunez. They already had Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah, they actually made moves.
They actually did things. So we've got some stuff to talk about. Some more rankings came out, although maybe it's not a whole lot to talk about there. And we'll also have a special guest from one of our supporters on Patreon. As we say always, you can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. The rewards are there on the site. You give a certain amount of money per episode, $1, $2, $5, however much you want. And based on your level of support, we have different goodies that you get. And as we want to do each show, we want to thank our $5 and up level contributors. Those would be Sox Signatures, Lendell Martin, Kirby Miller, Gerardo Iantosca, Kyle Costigan, Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Hurricanes 1, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, and Evan Kirkwood. Special shout out this episode to Lendell Martin, by the way, and thanks to all of them and all of our contributors who help us keep this podcast going and the website. You can also support the podcast by subscribing to the podcast and rating and review. We're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher. We're on Google Play Music. We're on YouTube. If you subscribe, you'll know when a new episode is up. And if you give us a 4 or 5 star rating and a nice review, that'll help us get in some new ears. And I always forget to thank him, but I guess I'll do it at the top instead of at the end. Special shout out to Joe Tetrault, our podcast producer. We love getting your emails, so now that we're getting into spring training, things are happening, send those emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. We do have one email we can talk about. So we'll get to that one email. Remind me, Ian, at the designated emails time. But again, send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. I should mention that our soxprospects.com staff trip, Ian, to spring training down in Fort Myers is scheduled. We are booked for Friday, March 23rd through Tuesday, March 27th. So we're doing a little bit different itinerary this year. We're actually both a week later than usual and going Friday through Tuesday, as opposed to usually we have the first couple people showing up on Wednesday or Thursday and then everybody's there by late Friday. This year we're kind of working it differently, and it actually worked out pretty nice. We've got 2 days with the Twins on Friday and Saturday, and then I think it's O's Monday, Rays Tuesday,
or vice versa.
Yeah,
it's one of those.
Yeah. So that'll be good. The first couple of days it'll make it real easy to see everybody, and then maybe we'll have a better feel for who's pitching on Monday and Tuesday, so we can kind of engage in some strategery on who to send where and to see what and what.
Yeah, because we actually will be able to send people because we'll have 3 of us there for the last.
That's
2
right.
days,
yes, because Chaz will be there. Chaz Fiorino.
So we can figure things out. Mm-hmm. So this should be good. There'll be a lot of coverage coming up.
Lots of content.
And especially, it's going to be important this year because obviously they didn't do instructs last year in the way they usually do. So a lot of new faces this year that normally we would have seen before, but now this will be a first look at them. So that'll be good.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting. Well, let me just say really quick before we get into that, maybe we can talk a bit about that, Ian. Maybe not as a preview of spring training, but just since you raised the point. But make sure you follow us on Twitter @SoxProspects. My Twitter is @SPChrisHatfield, and you can follow Ian @Ian Cundall, IANCUNDALL. And you make sure you check out the news page, news.soxprospects.com. That's where all of our new scouting content will be from spring training. But like I said, I think we're going to do an episode before we leave in a month. So, this doesn't need to be the preview. But, it's been interesting during this kind of ranking season and everything, Ian, that, we don't really have anyone like, for example, we've been very proud about the fact that last year we were kind of high on Brian Mata before a lot of people, I think. And he is now a consensus top 4 prospect in this system, either third or fourth, depending on which ranking you go with. We've got him at number 3. We've been in the past. I'm trying to think of who else we were really early on.
Xander
Bogaerts from reports from Instructs.
Ben Taylor, but that was like lower level. But he was someone we just said was a big leaguer after seeing him in.
Right, but I'm just thinking more from Instructs.
Instructs. I'd have to look back.
Yeah, I know Mata was someone you came away raving about one year, and we decided, hey, let's push him. And he was was it Route Ace?
No, it was. Wasn't it a Basabe?
Maybe LAX Basabe. Yeah.
There was Victor Diaz too, and then he got included in the.
Vic Diaz might be who I'm thinking
And then he
about.
got included in the White Sox trade.
Yeah, but I think that was a year later.
Was it?
Yep. Yeah. No, it was a year later. Trust me. Because he had pitched in Greenville before they traded him.
I'm pretty sure he was at Instructs again though that year. But
right,
but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm saying we were early on a guy that you caught at Instructs.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point I'm making is that this year we don't really have that guy because we didn't get to send you to Instructs.
Well, because they didn't do it like they normally do.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't like we didn't choose not to go. They just didn't play games like they normally do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But and it's for example, you look at guys who maybe are ranked a little higher in like an MLB Pipeline and Baseball America's rankings. They both had Darwin Hernandez as a top 10 prospect. We have him at number 14 right now as we do this show, and part of the reason is that apparently in his last start of the season, Hernandez finally switched to using heavily a slider, which we hadn't even really seen him throw much. And if you look at Baseball America's grades for him, the BA grades already have him with a 60 slider. I think MLB's might have. I feel like MLB Pipelines might have given him a 65 slider with a 65 fastball.
I'm going to look. That's aggressive still. I mean, for a pitch you've thrown in one game, that's aggressive.
Well, exactly. And it's just kind of like if we had been able to see him in Instructs and you would come back saying like, so Darwinson now throws a plus slider.
Yeah.
Of course he's a top 10 prospect.
I've never seen him throw a slider before. But I think though that with him, like we kind of talked about it, we do rankings and don't want to get too in depth. Like he could have been anywhere from like 8, 7 to 14.
Sure, but it makes it a lot easier to put him up. Yeah.
When we did it back then, I would have been fine with him anywhere from 7. They have a 55 slider.
Okay, so it was the 260s in BA is what I was thinking about.
But like
then.
When I was doing my rankings at the end of the season, like he was someone in the tier from like 7. Exactly, it was 7 to 14. So it's just that ordering like. It's those fine details or the little things like that would push him to the top of the tier versus right now we have him at the near the end because the last time we saw him was spring training last year when he wasn't throwing a slider. He was breaking ball, which wasn't good.
Right.
Or curveball that wasn't good. Sorry. So yeah.
So just really quick, and I'm going to leave this in because it's hilarious and I'm sure everyone else has been hearing it too. Ian got a new headset. And for something is rubbing up against something, Ian, and it sounds like farting noises, which is pretty funny, but you may want to take a look at that. I don't know what it is.
Too, but I didn't know it was from the headset.
It's not from this end. Yeah, whatever that was.
This?
Yes.
Oh, that's because it doesn't have, my old headset had like a little clip so that it wouldn't move around my jacket.
Okay.
But what it is the microphone keeps hitting my zipper on my like pullover.
That is exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
That's the microphone hitting the zipper.
Okay, so Ian found a clip. I think we're good. Let's get into some news, Ian.
Yes.
I don't think I'm going to do these in the order you wrote them.
Well, I did them in chronological.
Yeah. Okay, so we had I think last episode we had talked about the Mookie Betts arbitration hearing. but it had not happened yet.
Yeah.
So Mookie Betts won.
I think we kind of thought that.
I didn't think he was. Maybe I did. I eventually got to a point
too low.
Well, it wasn't too low before Chris Bryant got his money.
Yeah, true. But I don't know.
When Chris Bryant got paid, what did Chris Bryant get? Like 10.75 or something. Yeah, he got more than Mookie did. Mookie got $10.5 million, which is, still not what he's worth.
It was just a bad, when you compare, I think the Cubs filed at 9 or something. The Red Sox filing at 7 or whatever it was.
Yeah, but there were comps that made 7.5 reasonable at the time.
Was it 7.5? Okay, maybe it was 7.5.
Yeah, they filed a 7.5 and Mookie filed a 10.5. I mean, this is kind of why file and trial, it doesn't make sense to me, because with the new data point of where Chris Bryant was, you know what? Offer him 9.5 and see if he takes it.
Yeah.
Save yourself $1 million.
You also save
the headache.
The headache of having a player hear the front office kind of bash him for about an hour or however long it takes and tell them they're not worth what they think they are. Because we saw Marcus Stroman went in a case this year, and he was not happy about what was said about him, evidently.
What was the tweet was, was interesting, and I'll also never forget what the team said about me in my hearing.
Exactly. And I'm almost positive we mentioned that on the last thing, that,
we did.
It's not a great look for someone. I just don't, for me, it wasn't worth, I get why they're tied up against the CVE or whatever it's called. CBT, because of stupid contracts in the past. But still, is it worth pissing off your best player over $3 million? I would say no. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
right. Especially when, in theory, it's not like they didn't know that they were going to file a 10.5, right?
Yeah, no. I'm sure once they figured out what Bryant was, it was evident what Bryant was going to file it. They knew. So yeah, I don't know. It wasn't obviously great for Mookie Betts. It's not, as you said, it's not what he's worth. But I hope there aren't any long-term implications because of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to Betts' credit, when he got asked about it, he said the process was interesting, and he said that he didn't have any hard feelings, I believe.
Yeah.
So at least outwardly, he's saying the right things. Who knows if he feels that way internally? Some people, at least on our forums, have taken the fact that Betts wants to go year to year as a sign that he's not going to re-sign with the Red Sox when he becomes a free agent. I don't think the two things are related.
No.
Honestly.
I don't either.
I think what we've seen with the economics of Major League Baseball is there was this trend towards signing these risk-averse, extensions before hitting free agency that bought out a year or two of free agency. And I get why players like them. But I think, it was really kind of being underplayed just how much some players that signed those deals were undercutting their own earning capacity for the coming years.
Yeah.
When you look at what Betts is making this year, it was like trying to find, there's a discussion on our forums about what a Mookie Betts extension would look like that started last year, but it's still a relevant discussion. And it's just, the comps, it's hard to find them because, I think Bryant set a record for arbitration, and I think so Mookie must be second highest for a first-year arbitration player, right, in terms of salary. I may be wrong on that, but if he's not there, he's close. So how do you set a comp? Because now, with this win, right, not only is Betts being paid $3 million more this year, his raises the next 2 years also get larger.
Yeah, it's going to be, 14 next year? 13?
Easily.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably more, I think.
Yeah.
And it's the extension is going to have to pay him that next year.
Well, and that's the thing that's tough, too, with the way the game financially is going. Look at what's happening this offseason with the contracts. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys aren't getting the money they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, and it's going to, go ahead.
So it's going to be interesting based on, what's happened this offseason. But then next offseason, you have that free agent class, the Machado, Bryce Harper, Kershaw class. Mm-hmm. Are those guys going to still, I think next year they're going to get paid. And so I think Betts is kind of smart to wait it out and see what happens with the guys next year, because that'll, what Harper gets and what Machado get will give him a pretty good idea of his. Obviously, I don't think he's at the level necessarily of those players. Actually, he's probably very comparable. It's probably comparable to what he should be asking for. Yeah,
sure.
Between Machado and Harper. That I was going to say, but with Harper's injury history and Machado was kind of had that poor first half last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Betts definitely has a claim to whatever those guys get is in the ballpark of what he should be looking for.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to depend, right? Because by the time he hits free agency, he's going to have their track record too, so that could go in either direction. I mean, if he continues to be one of the most valuable defensive players in baseball, as well as being a prototypical top 3 hitter, then he absolutely should be asking for that kind of money.
Well, the interesting thing is 2016, I wouldn't be surprised if 2016 is the best year of his career still. But, even what he did last year when what was considered a down year is still a very good player.
Oh,
265 with 24 home runs, 26 steals, 344 OBP, almost as many walks as strikeouts, and obviously, as you said, the defensive value he brings. So,
yeah, it's kind of funny. You look at the counting numbers, kind of belie. I mean, basically, fewer hits fell in is the only difference. Because this
BABIP much lower.
Yeah, he based on a number of things, including batted ball profile, might have been one of the most unlucky players in the majors last year. So you would expect the numbers to rebound from what he did last year, but even what he did last year was an extremely valuable player. I mean, you're getting Gold Glove defense in right field, particularly at Fenway, from a guy who could hit number 1 in pretty much any lineup in baseball. I'm in.
It's interesting, though, that how much attention his ARB hearings and everything, obviously it's because they've been contentious, how much is getting paid to him getting a long-term extension, whereas Bogaerts only has 1 more year after this, and I don't really see much discussion at all about extending him.
I think a lot of that's going to have to do with what he does this year. Yeah. Because there's question about what kind of player Bogaerts is. I think having a new coaching staff in will help with that. Because let's put first things first, he shouldn't have been playing last year.
No, he was injured.
The thumb injury was so obviously bothering him. He should not have been playing.
Much worse than,
It's diminishing returns, Yeah. Sit him down for 2 weeks to a month. Okay, you know what? You're going to have to play. I don't know. When they got Nunez, start Nunez at short and put Bogaerts on the DL.
Well, they had to play him at second, though.
I guess that's true. Yeah, that's right. So. But I mean, okay. So maybe you've
got. But then
that's
a roster construction problem, though. The fact that they didn't have an adequate backup shortstop on the roster. I mean, they have like Devin Marrero.
And he was playing. He was playing third.
Yeah. Well, no, Devers was up by that point.
I guess. Well, I mean, I think Bogaerts was hurt even before then. Before Devers was up. So
that's a roster construction issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, kind of taking it back to, or if you want to transition to something for coming this year with the Marco Hernandez injury, the bench roster construction, I have no idea what they're going to do. Because,
okay, well let's preface with the market. Well, let's put the two things together because they're related. One being the Red Sox have re-signed Eduardo Nunez to a contract I like. I had said I wasn't really in on the Eduardo Nunez re-signing decision. Now I am very much in on the Eduardo Nunez re-signing decision. They got him for
happened to Hernandez. It's a no-brainer.
They got him for 1 year, $4 million with a player option. I think for another $4 million.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, even if
I'm in on it. I'm in on
utility guy. That's fine.
I'm in on Eduardo Nunez at $4 million.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if he's going to take that, and apparently he's okay with a backup role, sure. So they re-signed Eduardo Nunez. They designated Ben Taylor for assignment, which I think we'll kind of table and get to in a minute, because that was strange to me, and they wound up losing him on a waiver claim to Cleveland.
Not surprising.
No, not surprising at all. Meanwhile, and the kind of piece that goes with this is Marco Hernandez has been sent back to Boston. His surgically repaired shoulder was giving him discomfort, so they sent him back to Boston where he had a screw removed.
Yeah, it's not good.
Hardware, they said, removed. They don't think he's going to be ready for opening day, I believe, or he's at least.
No, they said he's not playing this spring.
Yeah, so
definitely out until like May, probably it would sound like, because you're going to need time to ramp up.
Right. So. Or at the very least, I mean, when he comes back, he's coming back to Pawtucket. I mean, that's obvious. So he's going to be on the Major League DL to start the year, I think, which would allow them to, even if he's going to start the year in Pawtucket, you can put him on the Major League DL and kind of keep an extra player in Pawtucket while things get sorted out. Mm-hmm. But, that said, so, and I guess the last piece is that Bryce Brentz has been traded to Pittsburgh for cash considerations, which surprised some on our forums, Ian, but that's the trade value of Bryce Brentz, man.
He's 29.
He's 29, and even if say his midseason fix last year, which we've talked about ad nauseum, was real, it could also just go away like that when pitchers figure out where the new hole is.
Well, yeah, and even with the midseason fix, he was still like a platoon bat at best.
Yeah, so
he's a 29-year-old right below average defender who has power. Like that's just not in this day and age. I mean, there are very similar comparable players to him without a job right now.
Right. So at any rate, right now,
good for him though. I mean, he's going to play in Pittsburgh because they have him and Daniel Nava or something, or Corey Dickerson.
They just traded for Corey Dickerson.
Yeah, so that's a good platoon though.
You think they're going to platoon him?
Corey Dickerson can't hit lefties.
I guess. Maybe.
But it's just, I don't know, with the Red Sox,
with Polanco and Marte are the other two.
Yeah. Once you had JD Martinez signed, like the Red Sox had no leverage also because everyone knew they weren't going to keep him on the roster. So.
Right. So at any rate, right now, if you consider the bench is going to include one catcher that right now is Sandy Leon, presuming he doesn't get traded or anything.
For what it's worth, I think Alex Cora said that his two catchers on opening day, or two of the catchers on opening day, are going to be Vasquez and Leon.
No, he said my catchers are Vasquez and Leon.
That's what it was. Okay. Yeah.
So, but then again, he's also not the one who's in charge of deciding whether one of them gets traded either.
Yeah, true.
Which is a possibility with Leon, with what he's going to get paid. Not a strong one, but I'm saying it's a possibility. So you consider right now Leon, Vasquez take up a starting spot and a bench spot. Right now, Hanley Ramirez and Mitch Moreland take up a starting spot and a bench spot. I don't think that's going to be a true platoon because you don't want Hanley Ramirez being the weak side of that platoon. And Alex Cora has said at one point before Martinez was signed that Hanley was his number 3 hitter.
Yeah, that should not be the case.
I think he said that knowing that was probably the roster construction was about to change, and it's a good chance to, give the guy a boost of confidence.
Yeah, sure.
And I think he said right now, so that could change. Mm-hmm. I didn't read a whole lot into that, but Hanley Ramirez is going to be the strong side of that platoon, with Mitch Moreland probably being like a defensive replacement and tough lefties guy.
No, tough right. Yeah, sorry. No, tough righties.
Tough righties, sorry. Thank you. Tough righties guy. So that leaves 2 bench spots.
Well, I think we'll see Moreland a lot too, like pinch hitting, like for Eduardo Nunez or for one of the catchers later in the games.
Mm-hmm. So that leaves 2 bench spots. Mm-hmm. Assuming you're going to have a 4-man bench, which there's probably an argument. Well, there's an argument for a 5-man bench early in the year.
I mean, I don't know what the off-day schedule. I haven't looked at it. If they can roll with like a 4-man rotation for the first couple of weeks, because that's the other issue they're going to run into right now.
Like the Rays.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could pull the schedule up in a minute. But yeah, so at any rate, right now we're projecting the other 2 guys on the bench to be Blake Swihart and Brock Holt in utility roles, which, is made less important by Eduardo Nunez being Eduardo Nunez.
Yeah, because he can play second, short, third, and the outfield. Yeah,
right now Eduardo Nunez is the backup shortstop with that roster construction, in which case you would probably put Holt in at second. Who knows how they're going to use Swihart. I'm still not convinced the best move isn't to trade him. If someone really likes him and wants him to start for them and is going to give you good value, but...
He's hitting well. I mean, I'm pretty sure he has like 2 hits in every game he's played thus far. He had a home run today and a double. He looks good at the plate. I was just noticing he looks a lot more confident than he was last season in Pawtucket. Like last year in Pawtucket, he was just rolling over everything and kind of.
Well, he's.
And he now is. I think it was it wrist last year or something?
Well, no, his feet, his ankle still. Yeah, and he said he couldn't swing.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell.
Yeah. Again, why was he playing?
Yeah, he's actually taking hacks, though, now, which is nice to see.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Red Sox early in the year, They open on March 28th, I think it is, or 29th. 29th. Yeah, 29th, 30, 31. It's Thursday the 29th. They have 2 off days the following week, and then an off day on Monday, April the 9th. So basically they play 4 games against Tampa, 4 games in Tampa, 2 in Miami, day off. Game against Tampa and Boston, day off. 2 games against Tampa and Boston, day off. And then they have 14 days without an off day.
Yeah, so they can't really roll. They could for a little stretch roll with 4, but they're going to be 5 out of the gate.
Well, not even start, but it's just you need fewer bullpen arms if you've got that many off days early, is the thing, right?
I don't think they would take away 1 from the bullpen. I think they'd be more likely to roll with only 4 starters and keep, a 7-man bullpen.
Well, they definitely can't do that. They've got 6 days without an off day.
Well, that's what I mean. So I don't see any way they don't carry 12 pitchers. I shouldn't say that. I think it's unlikely.
I could see them going with 11 to start the year if they decide to option Brandon Workman to start the year, but he's going to eventually come up.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, at any rate, yeah, we're belaboring that point.
This is the most spring training discussion ever.
Yeah. At any rate, so there's 2 spots on the bench available right now, and it seems like right now you would go with 2 of the 3 of Swihart, Holt, and Devin Marrero, because Swihart and Marrero are out of options, and Holt is just kind of like the major league holdover. There's an argument because Holt can be optioned, and apparently he's got a split contract where in the majors he makes like $2.05 million or whatever it is, but if he's optioned at Pawtucket, he only makes $600K or something like that while he's in Pawtucket. That said, I can't see them optioning Holt.
It's a tough look too, just in terms of
it's like
people will not be at.
Yeah,
people will remember that.
Well, the people being people in the
baseball
clubhouse,
like and
well, in the clubhouse too. I mean, sure. if he's bad, it's like just DFA him or something. Maybe you could option him just to keep him, but when you've got a guy who's been a key part of the roster for 2-3 years like Holt has, that's just a rough look optioning him so you don't have to DFA Devin Marrero.
Yeah, but the thing is too, like Brock Holt was not good last year.
That's the thing. Well, and it's like if it was an injury thing, then you want Brock Holt. If it wasn't an injury thing, again, I would say DFA him.
Mm-hmm.
Move him.
Yeah.
Just say, look, we're not going to have a spot for you. And it's not like they're hurting for middle infielders, although maybe they are now that Marco Hernandez is hurt. Because
I don't know. I don't see a lot of depth there. If they have to DFA one of Holt or Marrero, after that you're going to Zue Lin as your next depth guy, or Esteban Quiroz. Like that's
Zue Lin's the next guy up. And again, consider the fact that you now have Nunez, right?
Yeah, so it would be for a bench role, but still, like that's. I'm a little surprised they haven't signed a someone like Ryan Corey or someone of that ilk to.
Well, right now they've got Ivan DeJesus is in camp is on a non-roster invite, right?
Yeah.
He's not a shortstop, but he could play second and third.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they seem thin to me at short. I guess you could play Nunez there. I mean, maybe optioning Holt. Maybe I'm talking myself into optioning Holt now.
I'm thinking about it as you were saying that. I think it does make the most sense because you don't want, if for some reason something happened to Bogaerts where he's out a few days. Marrero is by far the best defensive shortstop of that crew of Nunez, Holt, Marrero, Lin. Like he's the one I would feel most comfortable putting out there.
Lin at short, I'd be happy with. Lin's a good defensive shortstop.
I mean, Marrero's a better defensive shortstop than Lin, though.
Lin can hit better.
True, but Marrero's out of options, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I genuinely do think though that spring training performance could matter for them. Like. Who hits better, Holt or Marrero?
Well, that's always the one spot where it matters, right? Is the bench spots. Last bench guy, last bullpen guy.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting. We shall see, I guess.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see how the bench battle plays out. By the time we get to spring training, it'll be over. Yeah, more or less, which will be kind of new for us. But at any rate, Cool. All right, so that's some of the new stuff. JD Martinez apparently agreed to a deal earlier this week, but the team has concerns. Last week, I guess. The team had concerns with the physical with his foot, as we mentioned. He'll be announced by the time you guys listen to this. Not a whole lot that changes here everywhere else, other than the fact that, now that Brent's left, that was a pretty obvious 1-for-1 move. Interesting how the outfield depth chart now, Ian. You've got the 3 Bs, and now JD Martinez becomes your 4th outfielder. Is your 5th outfielder, I guess, Nunez?
That's the one thing I was thinking about. I think that's why Holt might have a leg up on Morera, though, is Holt can play outfield.
Yeah, I mean, that, and then you look at...
Triple A's.
Well, the other darling so far in early Grapefruit League has been Jeremy Barfield, who's got 2 home runs. Yeah, right. So, and he homered in the first game against Northeastern. He took some poor Northeastern kid to hit the ball.
Not go well for
hit the ball to Bradenton.
Yeah.
To make it like 15-2 in the 3rd or something.
Is that the game Kyrie Washington homered in too?
Oh, I'm thinking of Kyrie Washington. I'm sorry. No, you're right. No. You're right. Barfield. Yeah. Okay, so he's only got the one home run
today.
Barfield's only got the 1 home run. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Kyrie Washington.
The thing with Barfield is, though, he's corner only. He can't play center field.
Right.
And you want because JD Martinez can't play center field either.
Well, but the thing is, all 3 starting outfielders can play center field.
Yeah, that is true. But the thing is, I mean, how much game time did Benintendi and Betts get in center last year? Not a lot, right?
Well, Benintendi, that was because Chris Young was playing center field.
Oh, yeah, right. I forgot about that. I forgot he was on the roster.
It's funny. Quick tangent. I talked myself into John Farrell. And looking back, why did I talk myself into John Farrell? Some of the decisions.
Yeah, they weren't. It was just some interesting moves.
Yeah, anyway. But I think, obviously JD Martinez, when he plays outfield, will be playing left field. I think that kind of goes without saying. When Eduardo Nunez plays outfield, he's playing left field. Maybe he'll play right on the road if Betts needs a breather and they don't want to move Benintendi around. But, moving a guy around the outfield isn't like asking a guy to catch if he's a shortstop. I never understood the reticence to move guys in the outfield a little bit.
I can kind of get it with center, but the corners I kind of...
But when you've got...
Fenway's different, though.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, and meanwhile, you've got Mookie Betts, who's one of the best defensive players in baseball in right field, so if it ain't broke, leave that. I get that.
Yeah.
But, if both Bradley and Benintendi are hurt, maybe Betts to center is the option. Blake Swihart can play a little bit of left field as well. He's played it in the majors.
Center. He played center yesterday in the major league game.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you look at the Pawtucket outfield, it's Rusney Castillo, who's not going to sniff the major leagues this year with the signing of... That's probably who the Martinez signing impacts the most.
He wasn't going to do it anyway. There was no way they were going to call him up. We've discussed.
Keep your mic away from your zipper. They're not going to go over the $237 million threshold for Rusney Castillo.
No.
And now, if he came up, they would.
Well, they're what, like $500K under it or something?
Well, no. I mean, it's rough because you have to estimate what they're going to pay the minor leaguers and how many guys making the minimum are going to come up over the course of the year.
Sure.
So it's all estimates. They're presumably still under 237, but they're like probably around 232, 230. I've seen.
Yeah.
So if Castillo comes up, they blow past 237. They're not going to do that. No. Anuri Tavares can't play center. I just realized our projection at Pawtucket should probably switch the two of them because it has Tavares in center and Castillo
he doesn't
right.
play center.
That should switch. Jeremy Barfield can't play center, so yeah, Zue Lin is going to get a lot of time at center field down there.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Mars doesn't play center field or shouldn't be playing center field in an ideal world. So Zue Lin is the next guy up at every position but first base. We're at Sam Travis. You're absolutely right, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I mean, I guess that's unless like Esteban Quiroz gets hot and they want to add him to the 40.
Yeah, maybe transitioning a little bit to Ben Taylor, given that Ben Taylor was the one they removed from the 40, I'm not sure there's a lot of guys they want to take off the 40 in order to add another person right now. So, yeah.
Well, the roster is at 40. Presumably a spot opens up unless the move is to option Holt. I could see another spot opening up if they don't want to keep Hembree around and they would rather have Maddox on the major league roster or something like that. Which, frankly,
Brian Johnson's out of options too.
Yeah, but apparently they said that, there was a report that neither Rodriguez or Wright is expected to be ready for opening day.
So the fifth starter is him or Hector Velasquez
or Reynes Elias. If they don't transition him into the bullpen like they've kind of said they might.
Yeah.
Hell, maybe it's Beeks. I mean, Beeks is on the 40. So you've got options there. But at any rate, so yeah, that seems like Brian Johnson might be your starter before he transitions into a long man role. I mean, there are spots that can be opened on the 40. They could still, decide to try and put up Johnson through waivers if his stuff is still diminished like it was last year, if they think he'll clear, because if they think that they want to have that roster spot.
True, and they could also 60-day marker Hernandez or someone at the beginning of the season.
I mean, that might be a little aggressive on Hernandez. I could see them doing it with Pedroia.
Oh, I forgot about him too, yeah. That's a good point.
If they don't think he's going to be ready. So, we'll see. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, with Taylor, I was a bit surprised by that because it's a righty reliever with options. When meanwhile you had Heath Hembree, who does not have options. Is Heath Hembree better?
That was the one. I think they're pretty similar, to be honest. And in which case, I would probably have leaned slightly towards someone who had options. But I mean, Ben Taylor's a pretty fungible player. Like they have plenty of guys at AAA who I would say are similar to him. Guys like Chandler Shepard, Ty Buttrey.
Maddox.
It's a Maddox, exactly. It's a similar profile. So I don't think. I mean, it's not a big loss, but just in terms of depth, it seemed like a weird kind of just giving away an asset when you didn't need to.
Yeah, for me, I was kind of surprised it wasn't Marrero, but now knowing the Hernandez information, it makes a lot more sense that the shoulder was giving him discomfort. With Hernandez on the shelf, okay, yeah, hang on to your middle infield depth. And like we just talked about, a position where a week ago I would have said they have plenty of guys, now looks a lot thinner. But yeah.
It's just, you don't see very often, though, someone, from the 2015 draft who's made the major leagues getting DFA'd in 2017.
Right.
After last year, he was really good with Boston, too. I mean,
yeah, and the kind of theory we put forth, too, Ian, that we talked about, Taylor went on the DL at the end of July, or in July. He made a rehab appearance with Pawtucket that lasted one appearance. Apparently he re-injured. It was an oblique strain or an intercostal muscle, I believe it was, that he went on the DL for. He came back for one game, like I mentioned, I think in early August. That lasted one game. I think it was August the 10th. He went back on the DL, and he came back for another rehab assignment that turned to his being activated and optioned, which was a little weird because they did it before they needed to, where he made 3 appearances and they decided not to call him up. You may remember this as being the move that I railed against as to why did you bother doing that? You could have put him on the 60-day and called up Brents in September. If you think about it, you only really do that if you're looking at him to evaluate him for September role, and they didn't bring him up. So you just wonder, did the stuff not come back? Was there something they saw they didn't like with the stuff, or was there an injury risk they were worried about? You wonder if there was something else there.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to check because I think I might have seen one of those starts or one of those appearances, and I wonder if there was something I just didn't really note anything down. But I might check, and I'll probably tweet it out if there was something I find.
All right. Cool. Other stuff that's happened. We'll do a couple quick hit ones. Outfielder David Durden retired to play football, which is a bit of an interesting one. Durden was signed last year. The Red Sox drafted him in the 20th round out of a high school in Georgia. He was committed to play football at Mercer, but they signed him for $125,000, which is basically slot for after the 10th round. Kind of interesting to see a guy that got the slot bonus retiring, but he went to the GCL last year, didn't do particularly terribly in 30 games, hit 220, 311, 231, so not a whole lot of pop. did kind of he hit 220, so it wasn't like this was a Shaq Green Thompson type situation where he went for 30 something with 30 strikeouts. But hey, if your heart's not in it,
Exactly.
people have asked he would have had to give back a prorated portion of his bonus. So the Sox aren't out the 125, and because they gave him slot, it didn't affect their ability to sign anybody else. So I'm sure it was just kind of like, look, if you don't want to be here, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, because they only had 8,000 left, so it's not like if they got his money back, they could have. I mean, maybe they could have signed.
Well, no, it was slot, so he wouldn't have even been.
Wasn't it 100? Oh no,
it's 125 now.
Yep, good point.
Yeah.
So there was nothing else.
Nothing else you can do.
I mean, if another one of the guys they didn't sign would have taken 125, I guess. But looking at the names, I remember all those guys that didn't sign for earlier rounds wanted more than 125. So makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the only guys they didn't sign were the 15th round pick Marcus Reagan out of
East Mississippi
JUCO, who was going to Arkansas Little Rock. The next guy they didn't sign was a guy from San Jac North. And Donnie Diaz, who would have needed a big bonus, he was ranked by PG. Trenton Denham in the 26th round needed a bonus. Araj Anu needed a bonus in the 28th round, and then after that they signed everybody until the 37th round.
And Teal said he didn't want to sign.
Right.
And then the other guys were all, except for, I guess, the 39th round. Oh, no, all the other guys were all going to big schools like Florida International, South Carolina, Texas Tech. So,
well, the 39th round guy is transferring, I guess, or Spartanburg Methodist, I think, is a JUCO.
Yeah, it's a JUCO.
Yeah.
So they're all going to big schools, though. So, yeah, it wasn't. I don't think that money could have, I mean, maybe another undrafted free agent, but.
Well, again, the money didn't matter.
Yeah, so.
At any rate.
Exactly.
By David Durden. Jake Romansky suspended for the second off season in a row for amphetamines. He's going to be out for the first 100 games, Ian. Last year we speculated that the suspension cost him a non-roster invite. This year it literally did because he already got it by the time he got the suspension.
It's not a great look.
Not a good look. I mean, and I'm just the only thing that I'll say in terms of comment is it's people on the board have on our forum have commented. I mean, it's just kind of like you did something that got you suspended twice. I don't care what it is. If you're in, if you want to say it's a silly policy, fine. Monster Energy drinks are probably the official drink of the minor leagues. If you, follow any of these guys on Twitter, if you, ever see these guys, if you're in a clubhouse or whatever, they all energy drinks or whatever, because doing this every day in and day out, it's a grind. It's a grind. You need something, but it's just be careful, man. Be careful what you're putting in your body. And my guess is it's not. It's just a carelessness. If you held a gun to my head and made me guess what happened, that's pure speculation.
It's probably we don't want to speculate on that.
So we shouldn't even say but. Just don't get suspended twice, man. Especially when you're kind of he got a non-roster invite, but Romansky's a guy who, if he comes up, he's going to get a cup.
He's a fringe major. He's a fringe backup catcher, like a very fringy backup catcher.
Yeah. So it's not a good look for him. It's kind of tough. It was kind of sad. I actually saw in a player's social media post the other day, his locker is still there in the locker room, with just the jersey hanging in it, but nothing else. Yeah, it's kind of a rough look. So.
And I think the only implications are Oscar Hernandez will make Pawtucket then. That's like a lock, and they won't have to carry three catchers. I think that's...
I think that, I kind of disagree with our projection. I think Danny Bethea will be the third catcher there.
Oh, I forgot he was still around. Yeah, he'll go wherever.
Yeah, so he'll go wherever they need him. It does look like they're a little thin at catcher.
I was about to say they're one catcher short in the upper minors though, because they like to have three at each level.
Mm-hmm,
so
and so right now you've got Austin Rye on a NRI along with Procession and Hernandez. So in Major League camp they're fine.
And Dan Butler too, right?
Oh, and Dan Butler, right, because Dan Butler's the starting catcher right now at Pawtucket. So they're set in the major. Oh no, Procession doesn't get an NRI. That's right. Even though he got one last year, Procession didn't get one this year. So
Yeah, and they decided not to add anyone after the Romansky.
Yeah, my guess is they'll probably monitor who gets cut loose from other camps or placed on waivers to try and sneak them through.
I would say that is a good guess.
Yep. I mean, it also helps that you might have a third catcher on the Major League roster in Swihart too.
Mm-hmm. True.
Making him kind of like was it Austin Barnes from the Dodgers type utility
he plays
player.
Second base and catcher.
And catcher.
Which is awesome.
That's great. That'd be great. And that kind of helps with the lack of depth.
Yeah.
A catcher in the upper minors.
But I think they said once Nunez signed, he's only going to be playing catcher, first base, third base, and outfield, I want to say. No second base.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I'm pretty sure they came out and said, though, that Swihart's not going to be playing second base. He's only going to be playing the corner infield and the outfield.
Gotcha. I thought you meant Nunez catching.
Oh,
I was very confused. Okay. Yes, I did hear that. That makes sense.
We probably buried the lead, too, of what is probably the biggest story prospect.
Yeah, should we just get to that? We'll just say the Red Sox signed Tommy Lane to a minor league deal. Fun. Welcome back.
Lefty depth.
Yeah. Hey, can't hurt. But yeah, the biggest thing is probably the number 2 prospect in the system in our rankings and the top prospect in other rankings. Michael Chavis has already been shut down with an oblique injury, and he's out indefinitely, Ian.
I don't like that.
Why don't you like that? I'm not questioning it. I'm just...
We're kind of getting into a trend of Michael Chavis not being healthy ever. And
not ever. This isn't ever, like...
Yeah. No, it's just... He's missed so many reps already, and it's just to miss another spring training where he was an NRI, and I'm sure they were going to play him a lot during camp in the big league games. He was going to get, that first exposure to big league pitching. He's going to get some time at first base, third base. That's not there anymore. And obliques, as we've learned, can linger. And, who knows? We might not even see him again until the end of spring or even into the regular season for all we know. Because, indefinitely, that doesn't sound good. So...
Yeah, oblique seems to always be the injury that it's like, oh, it's just an oblique, and then the next thing you know, the guy hasn't played in 5 weeks.
Wasn't that what did Groom have last year? Oh no, his was a lat.
A lat, yes. Yeah. Different back muscle.
Yeah.
I remember Reddick had an oblique once that just lingered forever.
Yeah, and it's something that it really impacts your swing. And especially with someone like Chavis, I don't want something that's going to impact his swing because he's already kind of running along the edge with how his swing works. So if he's having to change it up or anything, that's not going to be good for his development at all.
Right. And maybe the club will learn from last year and just let him be healthy before he comes back.
Yeah. Because we've seen what healthy Chavis can do.
Yeah.
Last year was example one, but you go back to what was it? Injuries?
We should kind of give people the lowdown on that. So he was drafted in 2014. In 2015, he was. I guess I don't have any notes on 2015. He did only play 109 games. So maybe Ian, I don't know if you can go to the leaderboard, see where that was in terms of players in the system that year. It's not the 140 game season, but that seems like a normal-ish amount of games played, especially given the timeshare he was in Greenville with Devers. In 2016, he started the year on the DL, missing the first 6 weeks with a left thumb injury. And then within 2 weeks after coming off the DL, he broke his finger fielding a ground ball and didn't even tell the team until September about it. And the problem with that was he stunk. He couldn't hit. When he had, looked pretty good, early in this, or I guess coming off of the injury at first, and then he, got dinged up and he was injured. Last year we went to spring training and we noticed that he wasn't throwing the ball during infield drills. He was fielding the ball and then tossing it off to the side, which was very curious to us. Didn't hear anything about it. We're told he'd be ready for opening day, and he did play on opening day before going on the DL for 2 weeks, or 11 days, I think it was actually technically. Went on the DL for 11 days, and when he came back, he did nothing but DH for the rest of the month of April. Played his first game at third base at the tail end of April. I think he might have played third base for the first time in early May. But then he didn't play consecutive games at third base until the end of May. So clearly this was an injury that they were monitoring. Part of that, obviously, was that he was getting instruction at third base. But at the same time, there's no reason you can't get game reps. And for him to, I mean, if you look at his game log, there are consecutive games played at third base, but if you look closely, none of them are on consecutive days until the very end of May. And this was a guy who needed reps at third base and wasn't playing. So, it's probably at least mostly injury related at that point. So this is 2 consecutive seasons where his season was significantly impacted by an injury. Now, could we be getting ahead of ourselves? Yes, absolutely. It could. He might be fine in a week.
Or by the time we get there, he's fine. Like, who knows?
Yeah. But and I think just looking at the repercussions of this, it's interesting to me that I think Mike did this on our projections. We at one point had him projected to start at third base at Pawtucket, with obviously getting some time at first base too. But Sam Travis is there. We now project him for the Portland DL, and you know what? I get it.
He's someone you don't rush, though, either, because we've seen what happens when he tries to play hurt.
Right.
So, take your time. I'd rather he, take 6 weeks off, whatever he needs, and be healthy and then start the season in May rather than, obviously it's not ideal to miss all these reps, but that's still better than coming back and trying to play at, 60, 70%.
Right. But, he'll probably wind up going to Portland for 2 weeks to a month for what's essentially a rehab stint.
It's like a conditioning assignment.
Yeah, just kind of getting back into the groove, getting at bats at a level that he had some success at last year, even though he didn't. He did not like he completely figured it out either. Before heading up to Pawtucket, where again, Sam Travis is going to be at first base there, and they're going to have a rotating door of guys at third base potentially between Lynn getting reps there. I don't know if they're going to get Esteban Quiroz reps there. I could see Ivan De Jesus getting reps at third base. Steve Selski is back in Pawtucket, so they're going to have
Whitty also.
Jansen Whitty also is there as a guy, but I think those other guys personally. It's another thing that I want to change about our current projection right now. We have Whitty starting at third. I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, it's going to be. That's not a good look for him at this point of the spring. Don't like it.
Nope. So, yeah.
Let's get really quickly to our listener question, and our question is from Jennifer. Jennifer Ian asks, "Hi, what actually is pitchability or feel for pitching or knowing how to pitch? I've been listening to a lot of old Baseball America podcasts, and they're always describing pitchers like this. What confuses me is that the pitcher is almost never calling his own game. It seems like pitchability is generally used to describe a guy with mediocre stuff, good command, and at least 3 pitches. Thanks for the podcast and all the great content at the site, and I'm really curious about this question, so please answer it sometime." Well, Jennifer, here you go, your answer to the question. First of all, I really like that observation of it's generally used to describe a guy with mediocre stuff, good command, and at least 3 pitches. Because I feel like that's probably
wrong.
It's not wrong.
No.
I mean, you really think about it. You don't use pitchability to describe Clayton Kershaw, right? Even when it may apply to a guy with great stuff, you never hear it used. Ian, let me start with you. You're the scout. Pitchability, feel for pitching, knowing how to pitch. I think we can agree those are more or less the same thing. What's your take on that?
What you said, Jennifer, actually it's pretty accurate. It's kind of just a scoutier, fancier way to talk about a pitcher's intelligence or kind of their aptitude on the mound. It's when, they know how to set up hitters. They know what they're looking for. They go into a certain at bat and they have a plan and they're able to attack it in order to exploit the weaknesses of the hitter. And at what you said, though, is a lot of it does apply to guys who, they don't really have a plus offering. And so they kind of have to adjust in order to get exact, because they can't just blow 97 or fool them with a hammer breaking ball. They're going to have to use all 3 or all 4 of their pitches, pound the corners of the zone, move it up and down, left and right, depending on who the hitter is, and kind of just set pitches up also. Maybe you throw a high fastball, even though you're only throwing 90 miles an hour. But if you locate a 90 mile per hour fastball up in the zone, it can next. And it's kind of sequencing of knowing when you need to set up one pitch with another, things like that. That's kind of when we're referring to pitchability, that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
And as far as calling the game, the catcher kind of calls a game, but the pitcher's the one that shakes him off or says yes or no. You have pitchers who will throw whatever the catcher calls. Like, who is it? Is it Sale that said he's never shaken off a catcher in his life?
I think it's Sale. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone. I'm sure many of our listeners are going to think back to the Kurt Schilling missed no-hitter or missed perfect game, whatever it was against the A's, where he said the one pitch where he shook off Varitek was the one that got hit.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, especially in the minor leagues, like pitchers, obviously they do a lot of studying. They do studying before games. They know what the hitters are doing, and if you're a good pitcher, you're always thinking on the mound.
Right.
You're not thinking about that one at bat, but you're setting things up for future at bats. Especially for starters, it's more applicable too. But I think a guy who's a pretty good example is someone like Jalen Beeks. Like Jalen Beeks doesn't have he doesn't have a plus pitch, but he's got like 3 average-ish pitches. Maybe you can throw a 55 on one and then a 45 fourth pitch. And someone like him, he's undersized. He's not going to blow hitters away. But especially when he's turning the lineup over, he's going to have to change things up from at bat to at bat. He's going to have to give the hitters different looks. And it's that inherent, just kind of, you can go out there and that this is what you have to do in a given situation. This is the pitch I have to execute, or this is the pitch I'm executing in order to set up a future pitch. It's things like that where you can go out and then obviously being able to go out and do that. There are some pitchers who can, there are others who can't. And a lot of the ones who can end up as relievers or as organizational arms. But, as what you said is kind of at the outset is definitely true. But I think there is more in depth, and it can be used both in a bad way and a good way, depending on who you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. It seems like there's 2 versions of pitchability. There's the lazy one that's used to describe why a pitcher who doesn't have great stuff is having success. And then there's another where what it's supposed to mean, which is just that how to sequence pitches and things like that. And, as far as a pitcher relying entirely on a catcher for calling a game, that's never a good idea, because you're not throwing to the same catcher your entire career, right?
Yeah.
No pitcher is going to have that. So,
except John Lester.
Apparently. Well, no, because he retired.
No, I know. I was just weird.
But yeah, so you need to be thinking out there on the mound. You need to know how your stuff works, and even if it's just to talk ahead of the game with a catcher, catchers and pitchers, they meet ahead of games to talk about how they're going to attack hitters. Literally each hitter.
Yeah, and they get. So I actually have pretty good. So I'm not going to say who it is, but there's a prominent major league pitcher who I was sitting next to at a AAA game once, and he had his notepad out, and he and I were talking throughout the whole game. And he basically was going through and picking my brain on every hitter on the Pawtucket roster because he was starting the next day. And as he was watching the game, he was writing down how he would pitch to every hitter. He was literally jotting down the sequence of, oh, okay, so this is what this person did. I would have done this. Second pitch, he chased a slider away the first time. What am I going to do? All right, I'm going to go fastball up and in. And throughout the entire game, he was doing that and kind of jotting down notes on all the hitters and everything in anticipation of his start the next day. And I kind of think that's an example of it, and he was getting his mindset right of knowing that, or similarly, like, what is a hitter going to do in a given situation? Is he flailing at breaking balls when he's behind in the count? Is he laying off high fastballs? Those certain things, it's the preparation that goes in, then the pitcher can then use that knowledge to their advantage. And it's being, putting that preparation in and then executing that.
Have you ever told that story on the podcast before?
Maybe. Have I? I don't think so.
No. I was going to say why. How have we not found an excuse for that? That's awesome.
Yeah. So
you mean he wasn't on Snapchat like 95% of the pitchers charting?
Because a lot of them are. But then that's kind of what stood out is, a lot of the time, as you just said, like, guys are on their phones, they're not really paying attention. This person was very in tune with the game and, was very interested in kind of planning out his kind of, plan of attack for the next day. So, yeah.
That's very interesting. Cool. Well, okay. Well, I think great question, Jennifer. Thanks for sending it in. And again, podcast at soxprospects.com. Send us your questions. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. So get them in. All right, Ian, I think I'm going to wind up letting you go.
Yeah, I think we're good. Apologies for any audio issues to the listeners. It was a new mic. We're trying to figure things out. And so I apologize for anything.
Oh, we'll fix it next time. And so I guess we'll cut to our special guest now. Ian, we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Well, now we are pleased to welcome as a guest to the show this week, or not this week. This episode is probably the better way to put it. A longtime supporter of the website, and Brian Morelli of SoxSignatures.com. Brian, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're doing this as one of the, I mentioned Patreon at the top of the episode, every episode, and one of the perks for kind of our initial run of our $5 supporters was an opportunity to come on the show and chew the fat with us a little bit on an episode. But the nice thing with Brian, who of course has the Sox Signatures website and business that he's been doing for a while, in addition to being a longtime supporter of the site. So we of course thank you and all of our patrons on Patreon, but you've supported us for a while now. Between just kind of listening and following the site and all that stuff. But you've been doing your Sox Signatures business for a while, so I guess just kind of by way of quick introduction, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do at Sox Signatures and a little bit about how you got into it and kind of your history in doing this as kind of a business and just kind of a hobby.
Sure. Actually, this is the 5-year anniversary of Sox Signatures. So
congrats.
Kind of happy to celebrate that. It really just started as I was a collector as a kid with my father. We did baseball cards, and eventually we started hearing about players back in the 90s and early 2000s doing small signings. So then it became about getting the cards we had signed. That grew into baseballs, and amassing a collection over the years, and got to the point where I had so many items that I just had nothing really I couldn't even display everything that I had. So I thought, all right, well, I'll sell, the stuff that I don't really want to display to kind of keep buying bigger and better things to add to my own personal collection. And started Sox Signatures off of a previous site that I had where it's just displaying my collection, and ended up being that a agent for old favorite Shannon Wilkerson. I'm sure you remember him.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
His agent reached out to me just looking to get something up for his client, and we did a signing and game used, and Shannon introduced me to Keith Couch and Travis Shaw, and they introduced me to more guys, and it just kind of grew from there, where I became pretty much the only person that can really get the other guys. Everybody can get Ortiz or Pedroia and pay the big money, but I'm trying to get the other guys before they get famous. You did a signing with Travis Shaw, you got something for $10, and now he's going out and you're probably spending at least $50-$60. Try to get the guys early.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I guess when you get these minor league guys, when do you try and get them signed? So obviously you do both. We talked a little bit about before the show, or before you came on. You do obviously both these big signings with players where they'll do 30, 40, 50 items, where you'll obviously set that up ahead of time with them and meet with them. But between setting those up and I guess when you maybe get one or two pieces or something like that, how do you go about getting the items? Obviously I think you go to spring training. What parks do you get to go to games? I obviously you're based in New England, I think, because usually I think you're more Portland and Pawtucket, correct? But
Yep.
How do you usually? What's kind of your method, I guess, of getting your items?
Yeah, so the Super Bowl for me is spring training. I'm out in New Hampshire, so I hit Portland and Pawtucket a couple times a year. Not as much as I like. I got 3 kids and full family life that keeps me pretty busy. But when I can, I get away. Luckily, my wife's nice enough to let me go down to Florida for a week by myself. So yeah,
it's always a plus.
Nice to have them understand. So yeah, I load up, as much as I can fit into a couple suitcases down to spring training. And the key for me when I go to, basically ask for free autographs, because that's what you're doing when you're not, paying these guys. You're asking them for something for free. It's really important, sadly enough, to just learn their names. That's the one thing people never do. And then the next one is learn their faces, because what you'll see a lot is you'll see a group of people all waiting at the place where the players come out. And all they'll do is they'll wait. The player walks by, they all turn around, read his back, and then you all see them start reaching through their cards, through their pictures, finding whoever it is, and then chasing the guy down. And obviously, they know.
Right.
That's one thing I've learned from talking to these guys, during our signings or just hanging out afterwards. They know everything we do. They remember your faces. They know you've asked 6 times already. They know you gave them a page of cards yesterday and you handed them another page today. Most of them just don't care. But for spring training, it's There's a couple times where, they're pretty available when they're all coming out first thing in the morning. Most of the guys will stop and sign a couple things. Obviously, as the time goes on, the guys that are late, they'll run by and say, they'll get you later. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, whether they just forget or just don't want to that day. I'd say the biggest thing I try to remind people of is that, you're here for one day and you're trying to get, your favorite player doesn't, whoever it is, they could be having a bad day that day. They went 0 for 4 last night. They got rocked, coming out of the bullpen, whatever it is. They're just not in the mood to deal with people that day. And, it stinks that it's your one day to get them and they're not in a great mood and you kind of want them always to be on. But I just always kind of feel like, they're humans too. And you just gotta kind of be patient and understanding about, that these guys' lives are really difficult and really stressful. And I try to respect that as much as I can, even though I'm trying to, run a business based off of it.
Mm-hmm. And I think in part as someone who does this, not just necessarily, I understand that you also, like you said, you have a collection. Do you think that as someone who's doing this because you also enjoy having the pieces, it's not necessarily just a hustle and that it's, purely get these guys to sign my page of homemade cards to, so that I can go sell every single one of them and I don't even care about the guy. Do you think the fact that maybe you care about following these guys and how they're doing and that sort of thing, does that kind of help you connect with them a little bit and helps that relationship?
Yeah, I think especially the guys that I do set up signings and game used with, where I am giving them money so that they know that I'm not just some guy trying to leech off of them. Mm-hmm. They kind of open up a little bit more about what they see from the people that are literally just trying to get 24 baseballs signed by the number one prospect on the team, and
right.
Never mind everybody else. And I think they do. I think that they do kind of connect a little bit more. And for me, it's not really about making the money. I only want to make the money so that I can keep growing the business.
Right.
I have a regular 9-to-5 job to pay my bills, to pay my mortgage. That's not why I do this. I do this because, when I do a game used deal with a player, I get 5 game used bats. I pay X amount of dollars. I keep one of those bats for myself to hang on my wall. I sell the other 4 just to make, maybe a little bit more than what I, paid for them, so that then I can go buy more stuff and try to get more interesting things and take risks and try some new stuff with it.
Mm-hmm. Any other tips for someone who, whether they're, looking to get some items, other items that are better or worse to get for whatever reason, for a player that they enjoy, whether it's signed ball, signed bat, signed cap, game use stuff, or things to be wary of when they're out on the market looking for stuff to get. Anything like that you would tell to someone who's interested in, say, hey, I really like this Tanner Houck kid. Maybe I should go get something for him to have in case he makes it, or just to have, so I could say I followed him.
For a lot of especially the minor league prospect guys, if they're not the world's biggest name, a lot of people aren't going to go through the trouble of faking them. You always want to be kind of wary of, too good to be true. You're not going to get a Tanner Houck autograph for $5. That's just a nice signed baseball. That's not going to be priced that low, or somebody really doesn't know what they're talking about. So as far as kind of authenticity wise, when it comes to Red Sox minor leaguers, you're probably on the safe side. People aren't usually going through the trouble because they're not going to make the money. Mm-hmm. But I would say that if it's something that you really want to have in your collection, the most important thing is kind of what it's signed on. So you'll see a lot of people getting, those cheap $5 baseballs that they sell at the team store with the Red Sox logo on them, mm-hmm. signed by with a black Sharpie, and it looks great when you get it signed. Chances are in a year that's going to be completely either faded or yellowed out. You want to be really careful with the ink and the item you're getting signed, that you want it to hold up over time. So, you want a picture with a blue Sharpie is usually the kind of the standard that people like for pictures, because blue kind of pops a little bit more off the page and it looks nice on the wall. When it comes to a baseball, you actually do want to drop the money for an official Major League Baseball, because those are the best, most consistent leather to get signed. And you want to just use a blue ballpoint pen because the ink's pretty consistent and stays over time. You want to keep it out of the sun so it doesn't fade. It's really just kind of, unfortunately, you got to put a little bit of money in if it's something you want to kind of treasure for a long time.
So basically, you're saying the Major League Baseball might be juiced, but it at least still holds it autographed well.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because last year something people were noticing was that some of the baseballs were reacting differently to the ink.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that the either if you the old like seal, well, even just 2 years ago, the Manfred ones, they signed it with a blue pen and you let it dry for a second or two and you could touch the ink and it would be fine. But with last year's, you'd get them signed, and even 5 minutes later, if you touch the ink, it would still run a little.
I think this is the most important piece of information on the podcast this episode. Holy, that's amazing. All right,
conspiracy theories are real.
I'm quoting you on that. That's outstanding. Oh man. Well, let me get just some kind of quick hits, because you've been doing this for 5 years now, which is great. Congratulations again on 5 years. Any kind of favorite players you've worked with, whether for whatever reason, since you started doing this?
Hands down, Dan Butler. He's just been the nicest guy. He's worked with me a bunch of times. He was, most of these guys, they come out, they sign a bunch of stuff. I give them an envelope full of cash and they say, thanks, walk away. But Dan was one of the few guys that, I'd hand him his money, say, thanks for your time. And he'd pop his foot up on my tailgate and say, how's your day going?
Yeah, no, I've dealt with him a couple of times. I think I might have interviewed him in Lowell, come to think of it. But yeah, solid human being. And that's why those are the guys that, when you see these guys who seem to stick around in the high minors year after year, yeah, part of it is they love the game, but part of it is the team wants to keep them around. And it's because they're good clubhouse guys like that too. So that actually doesn't surprise me at all about Dan Butler. So awesome, cool. All right, I'm trying to think if that's everything. Anything that I've forgotten to ask you about that you've been dying to say on the show that obviously won't get me thrown off the air or anything like that, or that I won't have to edit out. But any kind of parting words that you want to make sure we have on here, Brian?
I just want to say that you guys have hands down been the best resource for my business, just because I have to act like a scout myself when I'm trying to figure out who are the people that I want to invest in, who are the people that I want to, reach out to and try to, really get in contact with. That, I'm out here trying to get a single A ball player saying, is this guy going to make the majors? And then is he going to make the majors with the Red Sox? And should I get this? Should I do a signing with him? Should I do a game use deal, or is he just going to be, out of baseball? Right. And so you guys have just been amazing for that, and I really appreciate it.
Well, we're happy to help, and we appreciate your support for the website as well for a while now. I just remember the other thing that I wanted to bring up with as far as tips for autographs too, that I've seen a few times. No asking in game for guys charting.
Yeah. Occasionally, guys will in between innings. But it's more likely that they're not going to be very very happy with you now.
It's just a bad look. I mean, maybe at the end of the game when they're the other problem is that at the end of the game they need to get back down to the locker room too, and they're trying not to get mobbed. But I've seen that with like Trey Ball, and it's also a bad look because he's sitting next to two of his teammates. So it's just like asking one of the three guys, and it's usually the first rounder who's sitting there. I mean, a lot of times they'll do it, but it's just kind of like, the coaches are also watching them. So it's just not a great look. So I would try and say
slur in the faces. That's yeah. Trey Ball. Everybody knows what Trey Ball looks like, but when you run into Jordan Procession on the street, and you're like, oh my God, Jordan Procession, he's going to actually appreciate that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Brian, again, thank you again for all of your support. Thank you for being a patron. Again, everybody, it's patreon.com/Sox Prospects. We've got, different, all the different perks for our supporters on there. So you can see what you can get on there. But Brian, we appreciate your support. We appreciate everybody who supports us on there. So thanks for coming on, my friend.
No problem. Thank you.